Sweet.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to get going?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Chef Look Cooks. This week we're making a bit of a sort of smash up, a pet project of mine. Two things that I very, very much love. Fell in love with elotes or street corn when I was working at Beach Road. We popped it on the menu for our taco night, and it was glorious. We used a dehydrated feta that really sort of like got fairly close to that texture of cojita. Or cotija, I think whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna say it both ways. Somebody can please maybe correct me at the end if they like. But feta is a really nice substitute if you can't find it. This is what we're talking about here, though. I was able to get this at Kronig's. It also exists at Morning Glory Farm. I'm not sure if it's at Stop and Shop. It might be, but it's like feta in that it's a very salty cheese, and it's a white cheese, and it crumbles very easily. But feta is much softer. And because of that, it's not really great for the salad because we're going to be tossing it with a bunch of things that are kind of spiky. You know, the cucumbers and the toasted bread are all going to have very sharp edges. They're going to mush that feta up. It's going to make it kind of weird. We want pieces of cheese. So the cojita is really ideal for this. You can definitely use feta. It's not going to really hurt too much the flavor, but it's going to mess with the texture a little bit. So if you have that, that's great. If you don't, feta is also a fine cheese. But it is available now, which is nice, unlike our sad non-island corn. But the idea behind this recipe was kind of celebrating the summer harvest, you know, things that oftentimes are, you know, held up as summer gems are really kind of at their prime as we get into fall. Tomatoes and peppers and corn being the things that I'm thinking of. You know, we can make them be available in June, but they're really a lot better as we get into September and October. And unfortunately, there's no corn on the island right now because of deer, but if we had corn right now, I guarantee you it would be some of the best corn of the year. So that being said, we're going to kind of jump right into it. As per usual, I have my mise en place together. This is what makes life easy here in the Chef Look Cook's kitchen. Got all my veggies here, everything I'm going to need basically right in front of me. Got my compost over there with all my ingredients for my sauce, basically everything. And then behind me here, I've got my toaster and my Roboku, or my food processor that we're going to make the mayonnaise in. And so I did modify the recipe after going last week and making it. I am going to just use a standard toaster. I'm going to cut my bread thick. I'm going to toast it in the toaster instead of the oven. I think the corn really is going to want as much time in the oven as possible to roast. If you're not time crunched, don't worry about it. You can toast the bread cubes in the oven by all means, but I'm just going to toast them as slices and then cut them into cubes after. I think it made a great product last week, and I think it's just going to be easier in general. If you don't have a toaster, you know, use the oven, please do, follow the recipe. But I think for this and the way we're doing things, I think it's going to work a lot better this way. So first things first, let's go ahead and sort of get things grooving. Let's get our corn in the oven. We don't want it super hot when we put it in. So one of the cool things about using the toaster for the bread instead is that we're gonna be able to get our corn in the oven and have it and the bread both be kind of cool by the time we start cooking. So let's kind of get you guys in here. I'm gonna show you my corn technique. I did this a while back when we were grilling corn. I learned this directly from Jen Mather, and it's the tri-peel technique. And it usually gets pretty much every little piece of the silk as possible. And so a lot of times when you're doing corn, I'll show you sort of the way I used to do it and then the way I do it now. You kind of just do it one piece and then you do the rest. When you do that, you always end up with these kind of like weird little pieces though. It really doesn't break as nicely as you would like it. I mean, it's still fine. Like there's nothing wrong with this, and I don't really mind corn silk, so I kind of just go with it. But if you want to try and get as least silk as possible, we're going to do a tri-peel. And so you want to find the tip here. You want to pinch with your fingers and peel off a nice strip. It's going to be your first peel. And then you're going to have an open part here. And we're going to just pinch our fingers in there again and cut it into two more pieces. And then we're going to peel those off individually, trying to make sure we get the tip of the silk with each one. And when we're done, we've got an almost clean ear of corn. You know, there's still a little bit of silk on there. It's like impossible to get it all, but it's a lot better than just doing a double peel. So I'm going to do that a couple more times. Remember, the first one here is you're really just kind of opening up the corn with the first one. Then you're going to cut it into two more strips each time, making sure you get the silk with it. And when you're done, there's usually not much silk. That was not a great one, honestly. I don't know, I'm slacking over here. So again, we're just going to keep doing it. Get ourselves some peeled corn here. And these corns are just like a normal bicolor sweet. Bicolor sweet is a hybrid corn. It's been hybridized so that not only is it nice and sweet like a yellow corn would be, but it holds on to its sweetness for a longer time. It's a lot hardier, more shelf stable, can be shipped across the country, for instance. So that's what we're dealing with here. A more heirloom bicolor, you're gonna be able to tell the difference between the corn kernels, but here they're just a little bit different. Some are white, some are yellow. This one right here is like literally entirely yellow. I don't think that got any of the good genes, probably some cross pollination, but it's a great hardy variety. And most corn nowadays is genetically modified, so we can't. It's kind of hard to sort of stay away from that without. It's just what corn is. So that's beside the point, though. More importantly, we are going to take this off the cob. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. The way I personally like is I get a nice shallow bowl, and I want a shallow bowl because I'm going to be sticking my knife in here. And you don't have to use metal if you don't feel comfortable with your knife touching the edge. This is my beater knife, so I'm not too worried about it. And then you want to start at the tip. You're going to put it nice right on the bottom, so you're nice and even. You're just going to use the tip of your knife, and the reason you're using the tip is because it's going to flow into the bowl like this. And you're going to use the tip of the knife, and you're just going to kind of run it along the cob. If you find too much resistance, you're probably cutting too deep. And then you're going to turn it. And you want to do this 5 times per cob, not 4 times, 5 times. The reason we're doing 5 times is because if we do 4, we're going to have a bunch of weird end pieces that are like short kernels, and we don't want that. If we do 5, we're about as close as we can get to a circle without actually being a circle. And 6 is just a little bit too much. You don't get the right amount. So 5 is perfect. 5 cuts down the side. Rotate a little bit each time. You're basically looking to make a pentagram. And if you do this, you should get some pretty perfectly sized ears or kernels of corn, which is what we're looking for this. If you are inclined, you could grill this corn whole and then cut it off the cob. That is a great way to do this recipe. Again, for me, I'm generally thinking, what can I fit into an hour? And so roasting it was just the move for me. If you don't like to use a bowl, you can do it right on your cutting board like this. You put it on the side like this, and you're basically doing the exact same thing, but you're doing it lengthwise like this. But it makes a mess. I never do it. You have to, it just like gets corn juice all over your cutting board. But you're essentially doing the same cut here, but you're doing it all at once, lengthwise. Again, you still want to cut it 5 times, not 4. But you're doing it on a cutting board, which can be a little bit safer for some people. But honestly, I find this is so incredibly safe and easy. And the corn kernels don't go anywhere. The corn juice doesn't go anywhere, which is good for me because I'm a messy chef. And my kitchen is almost always in the process of being cleaned after I cook. So it's the flow of things, as they say. Oh, beautiful. So this is looking great. We're getting, I think, just about the right amount of corn. 5 years is what I said. You can put more in there if you want. You can put less in there if you want. The corn is important because it is the sort of what we're generating our sauce off of, that Elotes street corn sauce. But it's not necessarily an essential part of the recipe as far as flavor. So if you don't really like corn, you can take it out entirely, still use the same sauce. But I personally love corn, and let's be honest, I think a lot of people really like corn. It's very, very well eaten starch. And so we're just gonna do a little bit of seasoning. This is some of the only salt you're gonna see me put in this recipe. For you guys at home, seriously put as much salt as you want. It's really for you guys. For me, I just really like a low salt meal, and especially since we're going to be putting a lot of cotija on there, I'm trying to keep it kind of low. So that's salt and pepper, and I'm using some of these beautiful Korean chili flakes. I just literally like these because they look beautiful. They're super bright and red. Most chili powder is sort of a dark red, and you kind of lose it in the dish, but these are really nice. They're going to be really bright, and even when we're eating that salad, we're going to run into them and we're going to see them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're just going to give this a quick little toss here with that oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, and it's going right in the oven, and we're just going to start roasting it, try and get some color on the edges. I'm just sort of scraping the side as I turn this here, and that's it's almost like folding it together. If I stir like this, it's cool, but occasionally you'll like hit up against the side and then corn goes everywhere. So I've been doing my best to keep my kitchen very clean. And you can see that, hopefully you guys can see the chili powder on there, just like beautiful little red flecks. So we're gonna go ahead and put that on my sheet pan here. My oven is already preheated to 450 because again, I'm not toasting the bread in my oven today. I have decided to go ahead and do that in my toaster. And we're just gonna spread that out nice and even and pop it right in the oven. Right in the middle rack. You want the middle rack so it has plenty of space above it for the moisture to burn off. And then I'm gonna set my timer for, let's go 10 minutes. It's hard to overcook the corn, really. It's a starch. It's a grain, basically, even though a lot of people like to call it a vegetable. And so, so it's hard. You know, you're gonna burn it before you really like overcook it. Cool. That's that. That's the corn. Let's move on to our next thing. So we're gonna go ahead and do our bread as well. Get all of our hot stuff done so it can cool down. This salad could definitely be served warm, like no question. But I'd probably take the cucumbers out if I was going to do that. You know, cucumbers can be warm. They're actually really good. There's a really nice recipe I like to do. It's a garlic cucumber. You cut your cucumbers much like we're going to cut them for this recipe, and you salt them overnight, and then you squeeze out all the liquid. And then in a hot pan, a hot wok, you brown some diced up garlic, and then right when the garlic's about to burn, you toss the cucumbers in there, shake, 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 nice and hot, and you get this beautiful like garlic flavored oil cucumber. It's kind of like a banchan, which is like a side dish you'd use for like a Korean table setting, basically. So I'm cutting this nice and thick. You know, that's about the size of my toaster slot, and I'm gonna go ahead and just toast it in my toaster. I think this is probably the best time-saving technique I had when I was rushing to make this last week, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's the new vibe. You know, toasters are a really fabulous time-saving technique in general, and they're not quite as stigmatized as microwaves, but a really great way to save some time. And they're going to get them really, really nice and toasty. But we, just like we would have done in the oven, we don't want them turned into croutons. We don't want something that's hard all the way through. We want a soft core. We just want something, we want to sort of dehydrate the outside of this bread so that when it gets some of that tomato juice on it, when it gets some of our dressing on it, that those dry bits on the outside sort of suck that up and protect it. So it's still a little bit crunchy when we're eating it, but sort of as the meal goes on, as that panzanella sits in there, it starts to get quote unquote soggy, which some people view as a bad thing. I love soggy bread. Like one of my favorite things to do would be to just dip this in tomato sauce and just let it hang out there until it gets soggy. And ooh, that's a good thing. That's why I like panzanella, honestly, is because it's basically a soggy bread salad. Which reminds me, so that's the other part of this. Sort of introduced the elotes, but I didn't introduce the panzanella. Panzanella is a sort of classic dish. It's usually with tomatoes and like day-old crusty bread. Cucumbers can be in there, usually are, and raw onion, and you mix that with like a nice vinaigrette. So we're sort of hacking the dressing and changing that for a elotes dressing, but we're actually going to keep the base of the salad pretty much the exact same as a normal panzanella. We've got our cucumber, tomato, and our red onion. We're adding in the corn, and then we're changing the dressing up. And so with that, we've kind of made this what I think is going to be a very beautiful merge. So cool. So we got our bread starting to toast. I'm going to let that go to town. And while it's going to town, we're going to go ahead and cut up our veggies. I've got a nice big bowl here. You're going to want a nice big bowl. This is going to be absolutely full by the time we're done. Don't worry, it goes fast. At least it did when I made it last. I got some of the last Morning Glory Farm tomatoes. Very excited about that. They have these really cool orange ones that are almost like a Roma, which is great. Romas work really well for this because you do want more flesh than juice. Like a really juicy tomato is going to work for this, but once you cut it up, it tends to sort of just, a juicy tomato, usually you get just like the skin and a little bit of flesh once you cut it, but like a Roma, you'll have the actual full sort of chunk, and that's what we really want. We want a nice chunky tomato. Cool, so we're just gonna go ahead and cut these up, get them in the bottom of our bowl while we do our bread toasting. So for me, there's a lot of different ways to cut a tomato. You can cut out the center like this, but honestly, I find this incredibly dangerous. If I had a, like I almost just cut myself right there. I mean, I didn't because I held back, but I could have easily just cut myself right there. So I'm just flipping my toast, making sure that gets nice and brown. I could have easily cut myself there. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. There's melon ballers actually work really good for coring that out. But honestly, for me, what I usually do is I just cut strips like this, and then when I get to the top part, I'll just sort of cut around the core, much like I would if I was cutting flanks off of an apple, and then just cut those into the chunks that you want. So that's my usual go-to for cutting a tomato. If I'm really feeling crazy, I won't even bother cutting out the core because, like, let's be honest, it's still food. Just because it's tough doesn't mean you can't eat it. And that right there, any point of sort of, any connective tissue on plants like that tends to be really, really rich in nutrients, because that's where all the nutrients were flowing from. The rest of this grew from this point right here. So if you want nutrients, eat the connective, eat the skin, eat the parts that that a lot of really like high-end culinary places throw away. It's the best part of the food. It's where a lot of things are sort of concentrated, because it's the stuff that had to deal with nature and everything outside. So, and for that, it makes your life easier. Like, I just cut right down the center there, and some people throw it away, but with all the, oh my god, it's so good. With all the delicious tomato around the outside, like, I can't even tell that that's in there. My body will be happier because of it. All right, so again, we're just cutting our tomatoes, and we want everything to be about an inch square here. It's rough. It doesn't really have to be perfect, but we're eventually going to get, if you look at one of my pieces of bread that I cut, I'm trying to cut my tomatoes the same thickness so that they look similar in the bowl. That's kind of our vibe that we're going for. We want everything to be about that size. The only thing that's not going to be that size is probably going to be the onions and the cucumbers, just because big pieces of onion and cucumber can be a little bit sort of aggressive, especially the onion, of course. But we want it to be big. We want people to be able to see that there is tomato in the salad and be excited about it. I know I certainly am. So there's my bread after 2 runs through my toaster. Nice and toasty on the outside, still soft. Ooh, hot. Still soft, which is good. We're just going to move this over to the side and let it cool. Where do I put this? Cast iron. I'll put that in to cool. And we're just going to keep running through batches of our toaster. I really like this. I think it's a lot easier than doing it in the oven. You can definitely do it in the oven too. All right, so then we're into these romas, which I do cut a little differently. I never cut the tip off the romas just because it's so small. What I do is I cut it into quarters. So I'm going to go right down the middle of that tip and get some wedges. And then from the wedges, I'm going to go ahead and cut my chunks. And you are never going to know that that was there, because you cut it so small that the fibers of it aren't even going to be a problem. If you're worried about it, you can just cut that tip off and then do your quarters like I just did. Just cut that off, compost it, no problem. Nobody's going to mind. And you also have a really nice flat surface too, which makes your life a little bit easier for cutting your quarters. So feel free to do that if you don't want to eat the connection. But for me, I like my extra vitamins, as many as I can get in my body, Beautiful. And at its core, Panzanella, in my mind, is a tomato salad. But it's actually really funny because for a long time there weren't tomatoes that could be used in Panzanella, and it wasn't a tomato salad. It was a bread salad first and foremost, and you'd put cucumbers or onions. Definitely onions. Onions were pretty much always part of the experience. But you put whatever veggies you could find, really. Tomatoes really only became sort of the main ingredient when they were imported. And don't look to me for the actual history of it. That is not my specialty, but I perhaps somebody will look it up and report back to us all. But yeah, tomatoes were imported to Europe, sometime, and as soon as they got there, everyone was like, what these would be great in? Panzanella. And everybody, of course, pasta is generally a tomato-based sauce, but that's fairly recent sort of addition. And really, tomatoes just go so good with starch. I don't know, there's something about the acid breaking down the starch, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they go so very good together. It's good. Don't worry if your bread gets a little toasty. The amount of burnt the actual bread is going to be so small, it's not going to matter. It's going to taste real good. All right, loading it up. Getting some toasty toast. Okay, cool. We're just going to get some of this tomato juice off of here. So here's our tomatoes, looking beautiful. Got a couple of reds in there. There's mostly oranges, which honestly I love. I'm such a big fan. Oh, great. Let's stir our corn. I got some stuff. I bought the bread at Morning Glory as well. Somebody asked where I bought the bread. That's their sourdough. Ciabatta would probably be best. I think ciabatta is one of the better. And one thing about sourdough is it's sour, so it's got that extra flavor, which is kind of compete with our lime juice. So I'd use ciabatta if you can find it, but it's not gonna hurt if you use sourdough. So I got that at Morning Glory. And then how many tomatoes? So the recipe says 3 medium tomatoes. I got those plum tomatoes, which are very small. So that's why I use so many tomatoes there. But 3 medium tomatoes would be like, a medium tomato is about the size of this red onion, you know, something you can hold in your hand. But I only had like 1 medium tomato, and then I just grabbed the rest of the orange ones that were ripe that were there. I probably used more tomatoes than were in the recipe, but that's because my partner, who will be eating this with me tonight, said that there wasn't enough tomatoes last time. I thought there were plenty, but she is a tomato fiend, and so I am cooking this a little bit to her taste tonight. But yeah, it's about 3 medium tomatoes, which again is, I said, like something you can fit. When I have big hands, but something you fit in your sort of the palm of your hand. Beautiful. Whoever just joined, I would love if you would just turn off your video, just in case you don't want to be recorded. I promise. Cool. So we're toasting. Timer just went off. Let's take a look at our corn. Oh, it sounds good. That is always a good thing. When you open your oven and you hear the sound of sizzling, that is a good sign. So we're just going to stir this up. I don't see any browning yet. That's good though. We got some sizzling, which means it's probably pretty close to getting some color at the edges. One thing we're doing here when we take it out like this is we're getting, you can see a lot of that steam coming off. We're getting the moisture out of the corn, which is what we want. We want the moisture out of the corn. The moisture is out of the corn, much like with the bread. When we put moisture into it, that being the dressing, it's going to absorb that flavor, and that's what we want. Beautiful, back in the oven. Gonna, as per usual, reset my oven because it does not realize that it's only at 430. And sweet. Ooh, toast looking good. I'm gonna put that one back in there. Awesome. So good. Okay, we are grooving. So toaster's still going, so I'm gonna keep cutting veggies just so I have some stuff to do. But as soon as that toaster's done, we are going to make our mayo, which is going to be tasty, tasty. I am making a sort of lime and chili mayo. But if you want to make more sort of classic mayo, just take out the lime juice and use only white vinegar. So it would be about 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. You can use up to 1/4 cup too if you want it really, really vinegary. Excuse me. Don't use the chili powder. Then that's it. You got regular mayo right there. Lemon juice is good in mayo, but it's not required. So cool. We got a cucumber. So cucumbers are really good. This is an English cucumber, which is a seedless variety, which is why I really like it. If we had local cucumbers, which are harder to come by in the sort of off season, I would definitely be using those instead. Cucumbers are cool, but when you cut half moons of them, it's just a little too much skin. So what I like to do is, this is sort of a salad bar technique. I used to work at a salad bar. Is you want to cut long strips of white and green. It's kind of a decoration technique, but it just cuts up the skin just enough so that when you go to eat it, you're getting that skin, that nice, you know, like I said, the skin has all the good nutrients. You're getting that nice crisp and extra bit, but it's not something you're like working against. So I'm just going to cut the tips off here. Again, great things to eat. Not good for pickling though. The piece I just ate, the flower end of the cucumber, has a lot of enzymes in it, which are great for your body. But if you're pickling, it actually breaks them down. If you ever had really soft pickles, it could have been that they left that on there, and that is why they were soft. So now that we're here, we're going to cut it in half right along the middle of one of those greens. And that's going to get us 2 halves. Whoop. I could cut straight. That's going to get us 2 really beautiful halves. So you see each half has a green strip there, a green strip there, and then 1 big green strip. So that's going to look really nice. The recipe, what does it say? It does say 1 whole English cucumber. You could probably get away with half if you don't really like cucumbers. I just like veggies in general, so I'm going to use this whole thing. But you definitely don't have to use it. It's really just a matter of sort of what you like for veggie. You know, again, this is going to be pretty heavily veggie. There's going to be so we're doing it pretty thick. Again, this is not as thick as the tomato slices. It's about half as much, I'd say. But again, that's just because cucumbers a little bit more fibrous, so we don't want to sort of overwhelm. Here's a good cucumber. We don't want to overwhelm our mouthfeel. So I'm kind of jumping around the recipe. I'm definitely not following it exactly. There is a part in the recipe where you add the onions and the cucumbers to the tomatoes. We're just doing that right now. Not going to hurt anything. Some panzanellas call for you to salt the tomatoes in a colander and let the juice drain out. I think that's silly. I love tomato juice. I want as much as possible in my salad. So, I didn't set the timer. 7 minutes. Let's see if that's good. So I'm just going to leave it in there. But and again, I'm not using really a lot of salt in this recipe, so I'm not salting my tomatoes. But feel free to try that. What you'll do is you'll get a much more intense tomato. All of the water in the tomato will come out, and you'll get a really, really heavy, flavorful tomato flavor without as much sort of water getting in the way. It's a similar reason as to why we're roasting the corn and toasting the bread. We're trying to get water out so that we can put flavor in its place. Always good extra tomatoes. I agree. I mean, especially now, especially when it's like the time. Like this is the last tomatoes we're going to get this year, probably, that are going to be fresh. So I just cut off the top end, the stalk end of the onion. And these are beautiful IGI onions. I just got these from my CSA, which I'm very excited about. So it's almost entirely local, honestly, apart from the cucumber and the corn, but so it goes, you know. And I'm cutting right in the middle of the root. That's going to give me some nice halves here. We're just going to go ahead and peel this off and reveal the beautiful underneath. Oh yeah. I actually don't. I could have cut off the root too, but nice. We're just going to cut that root off now. Might as well. I'm just so used to not, because I want to, you know, if the root's on, you have a lot more control of what's happening with this onion. As soon as you take that root off, it's really hard to do like complex chops because the skin starts to peel and go to weird places and just move all over the place. So I usually keep the root on, but for this, we're not worried about that because we're going to cut with the grain. And so onions have a grain. You can kind of see it. So with the grain, which you may have all been sort of trying to figure out with the recipe, means that we're cutting with that grain. So we're going to put this down on the cutting board like this, and we're going to cut around it as thin as we possibly can, turning our knife the whole time. When we get over here, we're actually going to turn the onion so that we don't have to cut at a weird angle while our fingers are trying to hold on. That's not going to be safe. We're going to turn the onion so we can keep our fingers away. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I'm going to move kind of fast just because I find cutting onions with this technique at this speed just sort of works better. But, you know, take your time at home. You really just want something really, really thin. So I'm keeping my fingers nice and curled and then just not lifting the knife high at all. And again, when we're about here, we're going to flip that over so we can keep our fingers out of the way. And that's going to be a nice onion. That's cutting with the grain. It's going to make some really nice half moons. They're going to taste good because, you know, raw onion adds a really nice flavor, but it can be a little intense. So you want it to be fairly thin so it's not super aggressive when you do get a bite. And these are nice and thin. We're just going to sort of break them up into beautiful little half moons, or crescent moons rather. And there we go. There's our onion. We're going to pop that right in the salad too. Doing good, good, good over here. All right. Whew. Oh, that's strong onion. right there. Okay, guys, so the toasting is done, which means we are going to make some mayonnaise. This is what some of you may be here for entirely. Let me go ahead and move this to a nice location where you can all see what I'm doing. Make sure my plug still reaches. Let's do one of these. Excuse me. Oh, it's not a very long cord. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's see how we looking here. You guys are gonna get a front row seat to me making mayo. So this is my Cuisinart open top. Got my blade in there. It's gonna be loud when it's on, so I'm not gonna talk while it's on. But I'm gonna use some fresh eggs that I got from my chickens out back. And one of the cool things I really like about this mayonnaise recipe is that it uses whole eggs. A lot of mayonnaise starts with just the yolks, and then you add more liquid in. You know, like if I'm doing a really heavy vinegar mayonnaise, for instance, like if I decided to do a full quarter cup, I might want to take one of the whites out. The whites have protein in them for sure, but the yolk is really the best thing at emulsifying, which is what you're trying to do when you're making a mayo. That's what a mayo is. It's an emulsification. And so the whites can sometimes get in the way of that. But for this recipe in particular, it's not going to hurt. The proteins are good at emulsifying too. It's just that the yolks are best. As long as you mix the eggs together and make them an emulsification of themselves before you add anything else, you're going to end up in a great spot. And that's actually part of the reason why we're using Dijon in here. Mayonnaise doesn't usually have Dijon in it because it doesn't need any help emulsifying because it's using just yolks. But because we're using the whites, we're going to put some Dijon in there. That's going to help to keep it all together, keep it emulsified so it doesn't break. It should work. If it doesn't, that's okay. We'll figure it out. I got some mayonnaise in the cabinet, but I don't think we're going to have any problems. So we're just going to crack those eggs right in there. Whoa. Beautiful. And again, these came from my chickens out back, so I'm 0% concerned about salmonella with them. If you are concerned, you can buy processed eggs that are what's the word? Starts with a P. Pasteurized. You can buy pasteurized eggs and just use those. They're guaranteed not to have anything wrong. So we're just going to pulse this and get it nice and smooth. Beautiful. So basically that is whipped together to the point where I can't tell the difference between the yolks and the whites. It's just a nice yellow color. That's what we want. Now we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients. So for the mayo, we've got eggs, Dijon mustard. Let's go ahead and get that in there. I doubled a recipe that I usually use here because I wanted to make sure I had enough for whoa, okay, some Dijon. So you can use any mustard. Realistically, Dijon's really nice because it tends to be a really sort of more mild flavor than like a yellow mustard, which can be kind of intense. But you can use literally any mustard. Mustard is also an emulsification of vinegar and the mustard seed. So what we're doing here is if you start with something that's emulsified, you add something that's emulsified, and then you add a couple things that are not. They tend to sort of like attracts like in this situation. There's some sauces that are like that, or you know, like crystallized sugar. If you have a sugar thing and you put one crystal in there, everything starts to attach to the crystals. And if you put a broken sauce and you try and emulsify it with another broken sauce, you're not going to end up something good. But if you have a really nice emulsification and you slowly put your broken sauce in there, sometimes you can fix the sauce by sort of showing it how to live, basically. All right, so there's our timer. Let's go ahead and check our corn again before we get in here. So the mustard's in there. We're going to work our way down the list, so I don't forget. But oh yeah, we got some nice brown edges starting on this corn. I think I'm going to do at least 7 more minutes in here. Go ahead and close that oven. Oh, this is looking so good. So again, we're just going to stir this up. You guys are going to get a good view here because the food processor is in the way, but I'm just starting to get some brown edges here. Everything's looking really good. So far, we've got 17 minutes in there. So again, I'm really happy that I decided to toast my bread, not in the oven, just for timing, really. But I would say, yeah, 7 more minutes, and we're going to call the corn done. Timer, 7 minutes. Go ahead, reset my oven because it's weird like that. So now it's down to 410. It didn't even know what it was doing. Okay, cool. So Dijon's in there. We're going to do the lime. Oh, I forgot my microplaned. So microplaned my lime. I'm gonna put the zest in there too because it's really tasty, especially lime zest. Lemon zest is pretty good, but lime zest is insane. So we got a microplane here. If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest that they're really, really cheap. And a lot of people like to microplane limes like this. That's really great if you're like a bartender, if you're trying to like garnish. But if you're like me, you just want the zest. You actually are gonna pull the zest off like this. You're gonna hold it upside down with the sharp sides facing towards you, and you're just gonna pull. You're gonna pull the zest right off of the lime. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. It's way easier. It's way easier on your hands. You're gonna get all the zest and just make your life so much easier. So that's what we're doing right now. Zest, zest, zest. And just work your way up and down the lime, getting zest along the way. But we're gonna use this microplane again for the garlic as well. It's a really great way to just make things really, really tiny. So we got all that lime zest. You can put that right in there. And then I've got a pretty bald lemon or lime. We're gonna squish the lime on our cutting board. It's gonna get the juices flowing, make sure we get all the juice we want. We're gonna juice this entire lime right in here. Limes almost always are seedless. This one is in fact as well. So we're just gonna juice that right in there. We don't need to use a strainer or anything. Make sure you get all that juice. Oh yeah. So good. And then we're gonna do a tablespoon of white vinegar. Lime is not quite as acidic as lemon, and so that's why I'm using a little bit of vinegar in here because we do want a little bit of, we do want it to be pretty acidic. And I can always add more if I need to later. I'm just gonna give this a quick little pulse. Just because we've got that vinegar in there, I don't want the vinegar to sit too long without being mixed. It might cook the eggs, and I really don't want that. We're gonna put a little bit of salt in there, just a pinch. You know, I know it says a half teaspoon, but you can kind of do whatever you like. Chili powder, again, that Korean chili flake. It says 2 teaspoons on there. That is because I don't want you guys to get completely blown up. I'm gonna put probably about a tablespoon in here because I'm a crazy person who loves spicy food. But you know, put what makes you comfortable. You don't have to put any in there if you don't want to. Great, so that's our mayonnaise base. That's where all the flavor is. I'm gonna put a little bit more salt in there just because you know, we're talking about mayo here, and mayo is pretty flavorful. So we're gonna go ahead and pulse that together again, get everything together, get everything emulsified, and then we're gonna start to drizzle in our oil. Beautiful. So that looks really, really good. Everything's staying together pretty well. The eggs haven't looked like they've curdled or anything like that, which would be a good reason to just sort of stop and maybe start over. They're a little frothy, which is perfect. So we're gonna make mayo now. And the way you make mayo is you take a protein-rich thing like we've got right here, usually with eggs, and then you slowly drizzle in oil. And what happens is, much like a vinaigrette, that oil is going to start to emulsify in. And when we get to a certain point, we're going to have put so much oil in there that it's going to actually solidify. It's going to sort of seize up, and we are going to have mayonnaise. It's just going to be that easy. So I'm going to take this off because I'm going to be pouring from my half cup here. We're going to do 2 cups of oil, all said. So I'm actually going to take this little flow regulator right off. We don't need you. So we're going to start with half a cup. And we're just going to slowly work our way. So I'm going to turn this on. It's going to be loud for a bit. You guys are going to be hearing anything. When we come back, hopefully, you guys will have gotten to watch mayonnaise happen. Here we go. Before we start, just want to let you know, very, very thin. It should be tiny, less than a pencil thin stream of oil. Sweet. That is mayonnaise, my friends. All right. And if you don't believe me, those of you who aren't cooking with me at home, I will show you in just a second. I'm just going to put that right there. So it's a thin mayo, no, for sure. But it is, in fact, a nice mayo. And when you cool this down, so it's an oil-based thing, right? And I'm using warm oil here. You generally want similar temperatured things. Oh, everything all at once. You generally want similar temperatured things when you're trying to emulsify. If one thing's cold and one thing's warm, it's just going to end up in a bad place. But you can see I've got a pretty thick sauce here. Doesn't come off my spoon too fast. That's a mayonnaise. It's very nice. Go great on pretty much anything. Let's taste it right now. That's good. So it's limey, which is what we want. Could definitely use some more salt, but that's on purpose. I didn't salt it very heavily. I would highly suggest putting more salt in there if you want. That's the whole point of tasting it like this. If you wanted it thicker, you could go for longer and maybe put like up to another half cup of oil in there. It'll get a lot thicker as you go. But I like this right now. We want it to be kind of thin because we're doing a sauce, right? We're doing a dressing, so we don't need it to be thick like mayonnaise. And when we get sour cream is similar. We're using sour cream right now, but a creme fraiche or a crema will be much softer. It wouldn't be super hard. And that's because, again, we're making a sauce. We're not making something thick that we're going to spread. So this is perfect for me. I really like it the way it is. I'll probably add some salt in later once I mix it in with the cotija and everything. But as it is right now, I've got a beautiful chili lime mayonnaise. And you can put this in the fridge. It'll solidify up even more and use it on sandwiches, anything else you want. We're going to use most of it in this recipe, but it's really just fabulous. And that's how you make mayo. It's really easy. It's vinegar, any sort of acid, really, a couple eggs, and some oil. The base recipe, basically, you could have that. It's 2 tablespoons of acid, 1 egg, and 1 cup of oil. That's kind of your base vibe. You can go so many different places from there, but that's a good place to start. Change up your vinegar, change up your oil, change up. Oh geez. Well, that's another problem. I think my cabinet just broke. Cool. All right. So let's check on our corn. I do believe it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this oven off. Oh yeah, you're beautiful. Hello, hello, hello. Oh yeah. So you can see, got a little bit of crispy bits at the edges. Looks like it was kind of roasted. I'm just going to stir it all together now so it's nice and it moves easier. That's because it's been sort of dehydrated a little bit, which we want. We don't want tons of water in this corn. We want it to taste good. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I am super excited. This is going to be so much better than the first time. Not that the first time was bad by any means. Oh, excuse me. Okay, great. So far we have gotten most of our veggies done. We've gotten our corn roasted, got our mayonnaise made. So all we're really to do now is make the sauce, cut our bread, and then put everything together. And then we'll be ready to basically rock. So sweet, let's do it. Let's make our sauce. So we're gonna start with our cotija. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why I heard cotija. I'm gonna look it up after this. I probably should have done it beforehand, but we're just gonna crack this whole package. We're gonna crumble basically all of it in there. We're gonna leave just like a little bit for garnish at the end, but it's hard to crumble as a whole. You can shred it if you want. It actually works pretty good, like on a shredder, but I'm just gonna do it by hand. So we're just gonna rip off some chunks like this, and then once you have the chunks, you want to kind of push against the grain on the chunks a little bit and get smaller pieces, and eventually it'll start to just sort of crumble up. And you want to crumble it pretty small. You want a couple big chunks for sure, because those will be fun to kind of get as a mouthfeel. But you want it to be small because this is actually seasoning our sauce. This is pretty much the only salt that's in here. So we want some small pieces to sort of act as salt, work their way throughout the sauce, and be essentially a seasoning ingredient. So we're just gonna go ahead and crumble it up. I'm gonna save a little piece right now for a garnish, so don't forget. Again, oh, it smells so good. Whew, I love this cheese. It is one of my favorites, right up there with paneer and grilling cheese, or like cookable cheese, as far as like some of my all-time favorites. Looks like there's a comment that I might have missed. I'm gonna check that out real quick. Do I have a preferred oil? So for this, you want something neutral, like literally canola oil would be probably your best for making mayonnaise. I'm using grapeseed oil because that's what I could find when I was out shopping. That wasn't like $1,000 because I all they had was organic canola oil, and that just seems silly. So I'm using grapeseed oil. You generally want something that has a neutral flavor. Most neutral flavored oils tend to have a high smoke point. So high smoke point oil would be good. You want something that's liquid at room temperature. You don't want to make your mayonnaise with like coconut oil, because then as soon as you put it in the fridge, it's going to become a block of mayonnaise. So you definitely want something that is liquid at room temperature, all room temperatures, even winter room temperatures, and then it has a fairly neutral flavor. So and you can make mayonnaises with olive oil or things that have a lot of flavor, as long as that's what flavor you're going for. Like if I was making a mayonnaise that I wanted to taste like olives, like let's say I'm making an olive mayonnaise, I have some olive tapenade in there or something, yeah, I'm using olive oil because that's adding on to the flavors. But in this situation, I want the lime and the chilies to come out, so I want a neutral flavor, which is what I got. The grapeseed oil is pretty good for that. I never really used grapeseed oil, but apparently it's fairly cheap, which I was very happy about. I don't know if it was on sale or what, but all right, so we're just crumbling this up. If you got kids, this is a great thing to have them do. Just like set them free for 10 minutes and be like, make the cojita into powder. Awesome. That's good. Make sure no big chunks in there. I'm gonna cut a little bit of this one off. I don't quite so much for a garnish. Awesome. Cool. So there's our cheese, and I'm just making the sauce in another bowl. Beautiful. So cheese, and we're gonna do our cilantro. Absolutely love cilantro. One of the cool things I really like about cilantro that I found out from one of my chefs is that you can eat every part of it. I just cut off some of the stems. I probably shouldn't have done that because let's be honest, it's all edible. So the best way to cut cilantro is to just fold it in on itself like that, make a little bunch, and then get it nice and tight, and then come in here with your knife and just cut as thin as slices as you can. And that's going to get you a pretty fine dice right off the bat. We're going to come back in here and hit this again with a couple more run throughs of the knife, but if you get it nice and bunched up like that right at the beginning, you end up with a pretty fine dice. You don't really need to do too much more. You really do want to dice this pretty good. I'm usually a big fan of just kind of like hacking it up and going for it, but if this is too big, it's gonna take a lot of the sauce with it. And we want this to be part of the sauce, not dressed by the sauce. And if you have big pieces, they're gonna get dressed by the sauce as opposed to being a part of the sauce. And so that's just a good reason to get it nice and thin, or nice and diced rather. About the same size, smaller than your cojita pieces. Beautiful, that's good enough. So we're gonna put 3/4 cups of cilantro, which is basically all of this. It's about a bunch. We're gonna save a little bit for our garnish. Awesome. Mayonnaise. So we're gonna use the mayo that we just made, which is so cool, isn't it? So we're gonna go ahead and just dip our 1/2 cup measure right in here. Actually, we're just gonna pour some out, even better. But there's 1/2 cup. That's 3/4 cup, so it's like about half more of that. And again, this recipe for mayo that I put in there is more mayo than you need for this, but I figured most of you probably like mayo and would want a little extra to put on some delicious Sammys later. So, put this in a container. You'll have it in the fridge. Oh my God, it's so good. Whew. Oh, I'm excited about that. Why is that so much better than the first time I tried it? Okay, great. So there's our mayonnaise. We got some sour cream. Again, you can find it. Use crema or creme fraiche if you want. Crema is really easy to make. It's just cream. You put a little bit of yogurt in there and you leave it on your counter for like 3 days. And that doesn't sound food safe because it's not, but that's okay because that's how you make crema. Obviously you won't be able to test necessarily what is in that. So you do want to exercise caution. If it doesn't taste good, it's probably not crema. It's probably just bad cream. But usually that little bit of yogurt will get the culture going in the right direction. So again, 3/4 cup of sour cream. So we're going to do 1/2 cup and then a little bit more. Beautiful. We're just making a delicious sauce here. If I was doing street corn, I'd have this sauce like in a bucket, and I'd just be like brushing on my corn before I sprinkle some, cilantro, chili powder, and cotija on there. Cool, that's our sour cream. Sour cream, mayonnaise, cilantro, cheese, and then garlic clove and a little bit of lime juice. I've got some lime juice here. I'm going to taste just like some already squeezed. I'm just going to taste what it tastes like after I put the garlic in there, and we'll see if I want to put that in or not. If you have a fresh lime, another fresh lime, you're more welcome to use that too. But honestly, my mayonnaise is pretty limey, so I have a feeling this is going to be perfect. So garlic, just going to crush that a little bit so I can get the skins off. Not too much. You don't want it to be too crushed because we are going to use a microplane for it here. And in classic me style, I have 4 cloves of garlic, and I told you guys too, because I am a garlic freak. I would, unless you're a garlic freak, I would use 2 or even none if you really don't like garlic. But again, I want this to taste like garlic, and I am not worried at all about fighting with the lime and chili flavor because those are both really strong. We're going to go ahead and use that microplan that we used earlier. This time, we're not going to pull though, because garlic doesn't really work the same as a lemon. We are going to go ahead and do it the way that you have probably seen a lot of professional chefs do. And we're just going to put it down on our board here, and we are going to essentially grate our garlic. You can do this with a knife too if you don't have a microplane. It just takes a lot of time. I really like a microplane for getting garlic for sauces like this. If I was doing garlic in a really smooth tomato sauce or something like that, and I was adding some at the last minute because I really wanted to be garlicky, this is how I do it, so I wouldn't have to, process it again. I could blend it all up and then put the garlic in right at the last second, or if I was like, doing it on the line at a kitchen job, but I really wanted that garlic to come through, I'd probably have some puree on my line, or I'd even just have the garlic and a microplane on my line, so I could just do this literally right into the dish. This is going to make a really, really nice puree. This is a really great thing to do with ginger too. Really fine way. You can put the ginger right in the freezer and then shave it off right on your microplane just like this without even having to take the skin off. It makes it really cool, almost like ginger snow, which is a great way to add some ginger into your dishes. And just have ginger on hand all the time. Ginger is a really great flavoring agent and also really good for you. So there's our garlic. So much garlic. I was so excited about it. So we're going to go ahead and take that paste there and just pop that right in our sauce. Awesome. And let's mix it up. See what we end up with. Basically folding it here at the bottom, getting all that cheese incorporated. Oh yeah, making it look pretty. Oh my gosh, yes. So that looks fabulous. That's basically your dressing. It's nice and thick. That's what you want it to be like. That's gonna coat all our bread. I'm actually gonna, I think I'm just gonna put a little extra mayo in here. I got a feeling I'm gonna want it. So it's probably a full cup of mayo. I know that I probably should have just written a cup on the recipe, but realistically, you don't need that much. It's just that I really like how this mayo tastes. And so I want to make sure that there's a little bit more in there. So we're mixing that up. Let's go ahead and give it a little try. Make sure we don't need any more lime juice in there. That's good. Ooh, that's really good. I'm gonna hit it with a little more lime juice. Just a touch. So good. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a really good dinner, guys. Oh, that garlic is coming through too, just like I like. And I'm gonna put more salt in there too. I know I haven't been salting much along the way, so it's totally fine to put a little extra in now. I just want to make sure that once I dress all these unseasoned vegetables, that I don't lose a lot of the flavor that gets in this, that makes it what it is. Awesome. So that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and clear our board here. Put my garnish over here. And we're going to go ahead and mix this up. So I'm going to mix the veggies with my hands. And I'm going to mix everything else with the bowl. So just going to mix. Oh, I totally need to cut the bread. That's the thing I forgot to do. Whoops. Back it up. All right, let's cut our bread. The bread is perfect, nice and toasty. I cooled it down like it so it wasn't a big stack. So if you cool your bread in a stack, it's gonna just get soggy again. We want it to be nice and toasty. So stack them up nice and big. And I'm just gonna cut these into like, you know, about inch cubes. Pop that right into there. So that's a whole loaf of bread, which is about 5 cups. You can measure it if you desire, or if you have like sliced bread or something, I would definitely measure it. But this seemed to be about perfect last time I did this, which is why I'm not measuring it this time around. But it's about 5 cups. And don't worry if you like aren't cutting these exactly in the same size. It is not meant to be a fancy dish. You can make a fancy panzanella, but this is a rustic dish. It is designed to be eaten by people who work all day and get home to some stale bread and some really ripe tomatoes that they pick from the field, and just mix it all together and have a great time. So don't worry about impressing people. Just worry about getting some delicious food in your belly. Beautiful. And we're going to go ahead and put all of that. Actually, you know what? We'll use that as sort of a garnish later. We'll put some of the crumbs on top. All right, cool. So now we're going to mix this together. I felt like I was missing something. And then we're going to put the corn in there right after this. Amazing. And even this bowl like isn't big enough, even though it's like one of the biggest bowls I own. And that's like, you don't even need to do anything to that. That's a meal right there. That's beautiful bread salad as it is. We're going to go ahead and put our corn in here now. Oh man, so good. So delicious. And I almost wrote down to actually mix the corn into the dressing before you dress it, but I didn't, and I think that's fine. What I'm actually going to do is I'm not even going to bother mixing the corn yet. I'm just going to go ahead and put the dressing on top, and that way the dressing is going to kind of season the corn first, and the corn is going to kind of act as like a carrier for that dressing, and then it'll just be sort of a light coating on everything else. So we're going to put our entire dressing in there, all of it. Oh yeah, put that in the sink, and we're just going to start mixing. This is actually not a good mixing implement, so we're going to put that back in our mayo, and we're going to get a nice metal spoon. This is one of my favorite metal spoons. It's got a really nice lip here, and it's really good for things like this where you want to get deep in and then pull to the top. So you want to get deep in the bowl and then pull to the top, and you're basically doing kind of like a fold here. Deep in, pull to the top, deep in, pull to the top. What you're going to do is you're making a hole. Everything's going to fall down into the hole, get to the bottom of the dish, and then eventually you're going to be just pulling a mixed salad. And you spin the bowl as you do this. So again, deep in, pull to the top. You're not really mixing so much as just tossing. Deep in, pull to the top. It's going to slowly start to dress itself. You're going to see everything start to get creamy, which is what I love about the salad. It's so good. Oh my God, this is... I just want to dig in so bad right now. Mix faster, Chris, mix faster. Okay, remember, so dig in, down the side, sort of scoop into the center, and then pull up to the top. And you can see it's getting perfectly dressed now. Everything looks good. I can see the corn in there. I can see some of the chili powder, everything. I'm realizing right now that I didn't put chili powder in my sauce, which is just a little sad. Oh no, I did put it in there, didn't I? Doesn't matter. I'm gonna put some more on top because I like it so much. Oh yeah, no, it must be in there. Anyways, it doesn't matter. There was chili powder in a couple different things, so that flavor is going to come through. But if you're at home, don't forget to put it in your sauce. So perfect. That's nice and mixed. Nice big salad bowl of bread salad. Let's go ahead and show you how I plate it if I was plating it for somebody else to eat. We want a deeper bowl here. This one's a pretty good one. We'll go for that. Not my favorite bowl, but we don't really want a wide lip. We want a deeper bowl with not much of a lip because we're kind of going back vertical in this. So we're going to take, first off, make sure it tastes good. Oh, it's delicious. Amazing. Bread's still crunchy, and it's going to stay crunchy for about, a couple minutes before it really fully absorbs that. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to get our hands in there, tip down, plate it right in the middle of the bowl there. And, depending on how hungry you are, it's mostly veggies, right? It's just like there's not a lot of protein in this dish. So, like, go big. It's a salad, technically. I know it's like a Midwest salad because it's creamy, but it's a salad. So go to town, make a big bowl. Feel healthy about it. Even though it's a creamy dressing, it's still good for you. So we got a nice little bowl right there. And on top of that, we're just going to crumble a little bit more of our cotija. Let people know that it's in the salad. You can see it right on top. A little bit of our cilantro. We're going to do some breadcrumbs here because we got some. And a little bit of our chili powder. Just because the stuff I have is really beautiful red. Guys, here we go. Elotes, Panzanella, absolutely beautiful mess of veggies and creamy dressing and some really, really nice crispy bread. I'm going to absolutely devour this and then probably have a second bowl. Well, it was so freaking good. Thank you for reminding me that I put in the chili. Guys, thanks for coming. That's it. We did it. We made a really fabulous bread salad. If you guys have never had panzanella before, I highly suggest going and trying a traditional one after you're done with this. You can do like a caprese one. You can do anything with panzanella. It's just a great way to use up old bread. And definitely 100% make this sauce again and put it just on some grilled corn. Oh, it's so good. Actual elotes is a whole nother level. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you so much, Chris. Everyone have a great night.
Yeah, don't forget to check it out on YouTube when we're done. It should probably go up pretty soon. And then next month, I believe we decided on a date, but I won't tell you what it is, though I bet some of you can guess. Anyways, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good night.